There's no threat of a government shutdown. I've been reading this for weeks, and I chuckle.
That was House Speaker John Boehner. We checked the tape. He actually wasn't chuckling.
No, and you know what? There is really nothing funnier than budget negotiations. Woo. Just ask Nancy Pelosi about that one. All right, Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Rick Klein.
And I'm Amy Walter.
Every day at noon Eastern, we're right here bringing you the latest in politics. We're chuckling all the time. And if you want to see more, it's twitter.com/Rick Klein, twitter.com/Amy E. Walter. Amy, what's got your eye?
I actually laugh on the inside.
Ah, yes.
That's what I do.
Indeed.
Rick. All right, well, my first top line today, come together. Vice President Biden is being dispatched to the Hill to be the budget peacemaker. Democrats have been clamoring for White House involvement. But will they be frustrated by the bargaining? Remember, the last time the vice president went up to negotiate, we had those things called the Bush tax cuts. Remember that?
Right.
A lot of liberal Democrats not too happy.
Well, and the thing is, the Democrats have been all over the map in the negotiations on this so far. So the Republicans are glad to see any kind of cohesiveness where one side is representing. But they're not going to be happy with some of the things necessarily the White House puts on the table. The biggest incentive they have is to make sure there isn't a government shutdown, to make sure that they're going to put some things out there. And it's going to take some real cuts for Republicans to agree with that. That's the reality now. Next up today, it is exploring Newt Gingrich maybe kinda is starting to think about sort of running for president. We're going to learn later today with an announcement in Atlanta. It's actually a press conference that he's having on an unrelated subject, the 10th Amendment, which has nothing to do with running for president. I checked that one as well. But it's been a bizarre pre-rollout for Newt Gingrich, but we're expecting him to take at least something of an informal to formal step later on today.
Without saying he's actually taking that formal step. Yes, the expectation is don't look for some big speech. Don't even look for much of anything. This could take like less than a minute, what he says. But fundamentally, yes, he is the first one officially in, and everyone, as we've discussed before, everybody thinks he's running anyway.
There you go.
All right, next up, Cajun spice. All right, the water seems to be getting a little bit warmer, enough so that Buddy Roemer, the former governor, of Louisiana, he was also a former Democrat who turned Republican. He's saying that he wants to get in because, quite frankly, Rick, he's not seeing that anybody else looks any better than him. He also may be one of the few people to actually have lost to David Duke.
There's something to put on your
resume.
Yeah, exactly. But look, we've said this many times in this program and elsewhere. It is so wide open that you have a lot of people, many of whom are going to be long shot candidates, and he will be in that category of maybe gadfly on the stage as we get into debate season if his campaign continues. And finally today, aloha means goodbye. Senator Daniel Akaka hangs it up. Another Democratic retirement. Senator Akaka, well into his 80s, and was widely expected to step down. But another blow to Democrats. You look at the field, it's going to be very crowded on the Democratic side. The Republican side maybe less so, particularly if Linda Lingle gets in the race. That will make things very interesting.
Democrats have one thing going for them, which they keep emphasizing. There's this guy named Barack Obama on the top of the ticket. He's kind of well-liked, we can say, in Hawaii.
That's right, from Hawaii.
That's right,
from
Hawaii.
So far as Mike Huckabee would tell us, if
Kenya.
nothing else. Finally, we're beginning today. We're going to talk now up on Capitol Hill. Congresswoman Karen Bass, a Democrat of California, joins us, a freshman, one of the very few freshman Democrats, a rare breed up on the Hill. And Congressman, I want to start with the fact that Joe Biden is coming to the Hill this afternoon. What does this mean for budget negotiations, and what do you think White House involvement is going to mean at this stage as we try to figure out what's going on with spending?
Well, I think White House leadership is always important, so I look forward to hearing from the Vice President. But, you know, I think that the Democrats haven't really been all over the place. I mean, if you look at what was done actually before I got here, the last continuing resolution, Democrats have already put forward $41 billion in cuts. And so I don't think it's a question that Democrats don't believe there should be cuts. The question is what type of cuts, and certainly feeling that the Republicans went too far with the CR that was voted on a week ago.
Very true, though it's clear from what we're hearing from Speaker Boehner and other Republicans that they're going to want to see more cuts. The last time the vice president went up on the Hill and negotiated, of course, he ended up with the extension of the Bush tax cuts. How worried are you that the White House may give away too much when it comes to cuts?
Well, I'm not that concerned about that. You know, the cuts that we were concerned about, though, you know what the report said, that it would have resulted in a loss of 700,000 jobs. And so I'm not concerned that the White House is going to give away too much. I think the Democrats have already demonstrated that they do agree that cuts are necessary. The question is where. It's a matter of cutting with surgical precision.
To be clear in these negotiations, does the vice president speak for House Democrats when he comes to the table this afternoon?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what he says. I mean, it would be hard for me to say he speaks for House Democrats when we haven't even heard what he's going to put forward. So it'll be very interesting to hear.
You might have heard right before we opened the conversation with you a clip from Speaker Boehner saying it was sort of laughable, this idea that there will be a government shutdown. How confident are you that there will not be a government shutdown? Do you believe that it will be averted?
Well, I will tell you that it would be hard for me to believe that the Republicans would be that reckless, especially Speaker Boehner, having gone through that before. So I'm certainly hoping that they will come to the table in a reasonable manner. I believe that what happened a couple of weeks ago, they had to appease the new freshmen, my colleagues, you know, over 40 of them are members of the Tea Party. Maybe that was an exercise that they had to do, and now we'll get down to serious business of balancing the budget in a way that is responsible and not in a way that would result in more job loss.
Ms. Bass, you come at this from being the Speaker of the State Assembly in California, where you've got some budget crises time to time. It's like going from one to the other. I want to ask, though, what in your experience in California can be applied to the lesson in Washington? What should Washington be doing that California has done, maybe that California hasn't done, in terms of dealing with budget crises?
Well, I think, you know, the experience that I had in California when I first started as Speaker, our budget was $110 billion. We cut the budget down to $83 billion. And as you know, California still has a budget deficit of $23 billion. And so I think if anything that we can learn from that experience, it's really to address the budget and not try to fill it up with different areas of public policy and ideological wars that really should be fought out at another time, and just deal in a responsible fashion. Now, we're going to face that when we get to the debt ceiling. We need to just deal with the debt ceiling on its own and not try to load it up with a bunch of different issues. And so I'm hoping that my Republican colleagues will come to the table with that in mind.
Well, one final question, just very quickly. On
Sure.
Entitlement reform, Republicans saying they're going to put this in their budget. How likely is it that by the end of this year, the House will vote on some sort of entitlement reform?
I think that entitlement reform will be an issue that will be put on the table. The question is whether or not we vote on it. I think that remains to be seen. But I do think that there's many people in both caucuses that believe that we do have to examine the issue. But we'll have to see what it means. The devil's in the details, as always.
So not necessarily something that you'll see in Democratic budgets then?
Right. I don't know. Not necessarily.
All right. Congresswoman Karen Bass, Democrat of California, thanks for being here on Top Line. Your maiden appearance. I hope there's many, many more in the future. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for following me on Twitter.